Frasier Gotta Have It is the 19th episode of the 5th season of Frasier. This is directed by Dan Butler, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. Generally, it's an okay episode. In fact, there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't find it to be the most entertaining, but it's certainly not bad. It starts off in Cafe Nervosa, and Roz is there. Niles comes in. Roz is leaving and tells Niles not to wipe down her seat after she leaves because she finds it pretty offensive. So he phones Cafe Nervosa from his cell phone, and all we hear in the background is the phone ringing and somebody saying Cafe Nervosa, and then Niles asks somebody to come and wipe down his seat. I thought it was pretty funny. They're then talking about Frasier's latest relationship with a woman called Caitlin, and Frasier says that it's a relationship he's feeling really good about, but Niles basically sums up the fact that it's a physical relationship and nothing else, and Frasier doesn't believe that, but we'll come back to that in a moment. We're then in the apartment, and it's Eddie's birthday. Happy birthday, Eddie. They have a little cupcake for him, and they put a party hat on his head. It's very, very cute. And Caitlin then comes over. She's played by the wonderful Lisa Edelstein. And, well, initially it seems like they would have a lot more in common than just a physical relationship. She knows a lot about wine, and then reveals that she gave up alcohol, which is not the end of the world. Frasier likes wine. It doesn't have to be the case that his partner likes wine, but then she says some other things that maybe don't gel with Frasier's personality. And then she likes Martin's chair, which definitely doesn't help things. Frasier is then telling Martin that he basically thinks there's no future with Caitlin, and he decides to go and talk with her, but as soon as he knocks on the door, she answers, and they go off to presumably sleep together. And then we're back in the apartment again, and Roz comes over. Frasier was supposed to meet her to go over some paperwork. Niles is there. He was supposed to go to a wine tasting with Frasier. So it seems like Frasier was double booked regardless of Caitlin. But obviously he's been with Caitlin and missed both of those appointments. And he comes home, and I like the fact that he tried to pretend he was out with Roz, not realising Roz was in the bathroom. And he quickly changed when he realised she was standing behind him. I like that. I thought that was very well done. And he admits, I'm Frasier and I'm a sexaholic, which I don't think is necessarily the case, but clearly he likes this part of the relationship but can't see anything else in there with Caitlin. And Roz says something that I think is quite interesting. Roz tells him that basically, as long as Caitlin feels the same, and it is just sex for her, and she doesn't think that it's going to be a more deep, meaningful relationship, what is the harm? And Frasier realises that that's a good point. To talk with Caitlin, and as long as they're on the same page, there's really no harm. Of course, one could argue that that's delaying Frasier having a more meaningful relationship, and also it probably will be harder to break off with Caitlin further down the line, even if they are just having fun. So there are definitely a lot of arguments for Frasier really needing to just break it off now, but nevertheless, he is going to go and talk to her. At the same time, though, in the apartment, they're telling stories about their own casual encounters. Niles lies about his, and Daphne has quite a long, elaborate story, and we hear the end of her story, and Niles just gets up and leaves without saying anything. Frasier then goes over to Caitlin, and this is not what I wanted to happen, and it's not where I feel like the episode was going, so I guess the unpredictability works well, but I will explain what I would have rather happened. Frasier goes over and talks with her. She thought it was something casual as well. Brilliant, no problems. And then things start to happen, and things start to be revealed that really suggest that this isn't a relationship for Frasier. She uses dead mice in her art, and she went into the other room to get changed, and while she was in there, she just cut her hair off, and she started to stuff her hair into pillows, which is not something I'm fond of as a concept. She then opens the curtain, and the light is beautiful. This moonlight pours into the room. It's absolutely gorgeous. She then howls at the full moon, and Frasier realises this is not going to work, so he's about to leave. She takes her clothes off, and, well, he howls as well. I guess it's funny, I suppose, but I wanted him to scarp her. I wanted maybe a few more things about Caitlin that are not what Frasier would agree with. I think instead of having him howling, I think we could have had a few more oddities about Caitlin's personality. I at least think that would be odd to Frasier, and then having him run out of the room. I think that for me would have been a more satisfying conclusion. I think it would have been more logical. I think it would have made more sense. I would have believed that more than Frasier howling. But then, as he did admit, I'm Frasier and I'm a sexaholic. So yeah, maybe it is a believable ending, but not what I was looking for. The final scene is Daphne heading out in the elevator with a deck chair, presumably going to sunbathe, and her story from earlier on was about a time when she was sunbathing, and, well, Niles frantically tries to go after her in the lift. Not a bad way to end things. I certainly don't mind that. Definitely not one of my favourite episodes. I don't really care for Caitlin as a character as much as I think Lisa Edelstein is brilliant. The character's very well written, the performance is great, but I didn't really care for her. I honestly don't think this is a particularly funny episode for me personally. I imagine the scene with Lisa, with Caitlin, at the end where she's revealing all of these things about her that aren't in agreement with Frasier's life. I feel like that's meant to be very, very funny. And the only thing I found funny, and it's not because of the thing itself, but because of just how sudden it was, is we hear a click and Caitlin acknowledges that they caught a mouse. I don't love the idea of mouse traps. In fact, I am absolutely against them. So that itself wasn't funny, but just her facial expression and the sudden shift in tone in her voice there, I found that to be quite amusing. But honestly, other than that, I didn't think it was a particularly funny episode. I guess when Roz was standing behind Frasier and he didn't know, I thought that was quite funny. Niles phoning Cafe Nervosa while being in Cafe Nervosa, I quite liked. Eddie's birthday. Eddie and his party hat, definitely the highlight for me. So, not a bad episode. There are definitely some positives in there. But for me personally, I think it's safe to say that Frasier Gotta Have It is not a personal favourite. I don't hate it. I probably wouldn't skip it if I was binge watching season 5. But I can't imagine it's an episode I'd choose to watch randomly. So, not perfect, but there are some good moments in it.